All right, let's talk about perverse incentives. So yesterday I just finished a week-long first aid level 2 program, which is really good because now that I passed it, I get a little raise at work, so that's really good. But what I want to talk about is let's talk about this first aid thing. So at work, people get injured all the time. Okay, like you get cuts all the time, like every single day almost. You're gonna get a cut, and then people are walking around with open cuts at work. And the perverse incentive thing that I want to talk about is, so we have a first aid room at work. Like every workplace is required to have first aid room, right? Or I had clearly marked first aid room, and it's locked. It's locked so that people don't take the supplies, which is okay. Companies are allowed to lock the first aid room. But if you need first aid, you need to go track down the first aid attendant, which takes forever because, first of all, our maintenance department, which has like all the trades workers like electricians, millwrights, heavy duty mechanics, so on, welders. None of us have our own designated first aid attendant, so we have to go to the production side, which is far off in the mill in the first place. The first aid room is locked, and then you have to go track down the first aid attendant who never wants to help you because they're under stress, under pressure, trying to meet their own quotas at work, right? So you spend a half an hour to go track down the first aid attendant, and then they don't want to help you. They do a poor job of things. Okay, so what is that incentivizing you to do? Well, number one, it's incentivizing you to go steal supplies out of the emergency bag that's hanging on our tool shop door there. And number two, it's incentivizing you to not get help in the first place, right? Because they made the process so laborious, right? And now let's talk about the emergency bag. That emergency bag is missing all the bandages. All the band-aids are gone from that emergency bag. So even if the first aid attendant had to run to an emergency with that bag and help someone, they wouldn't be able to do it because it's missing everything, right? Because like I said, when we get cuts, little cuts, yes, you are required to go to first aid to get help for that. You can't just band-aid yourself, and you need to get help because it could turn into an infection, right? That's on paper. But that is never how things turn out in reality, because the emergency. And then last time I got a cut, okay, I was like, okay, let's get a band-aid for this. I went to the purchaser, and the manager was there, and I asked them to order bandages, or if they had any extra band-aids, because we didn't have them in the bag, the emergency bag. And he said, no, you're not allowed to take band-aids from the emergency bag, because then if there's an emergency, the first aid attendant won't have band-aids to use. So all this stuff seems good on paper. Like, yes, in an ideal world, the guy gets a cut, he goes to the first aid attendant, he doesn't take from the emergency bag. You get a proper paperwork done around that issue, you get the help you need, so on and so forth. But what's the reality? The reality is emergency bag is missing the band-aids. You're not allowed to take band-aids from the emergency bag, so they won't even restock it. And then if you can't get a band-aid from the emergency bag, as a millwright, you're under pressure trying to fix equipment, the production is losing money. You're not going to spend half an hour tracking down a first aid attendant and then spending God knows how long getting and then the first aid, like when they treat you, like I was just learning in this program, like that's a very involved, time-taking process, because they have to do a whole full primary survey, because any little cut, even like let's say you cut yourself with a box cutter or something at work, that could be just the surface level of something, of a much deeper underlying issue. Like maybe you had a heart condition or something, or a respiratory failure, or God knows what else, right? Maybe that's what caused you to cut yourself, and maybe the cut is only the tip of the iceberg, right? So then they are required to do a full primary survey, document everything they gave you, all the help they gave you. They're gonna administer an ice pack probably. That's gonna be like 20 minutes on, 5 minutes off, cycle through that shit. Like how long does it take, right? And then if you're getting cuts at work every single day, and then probably even multiple times a day, like how is your manager going to look at you if you're running to the first aid room in the middle of servicing a machine that needs to be up and running like pronto, right? So perverse incentives, what are you incentivized to do? Well, I'm incentivized to run around with open wounds all day, every single day. I'm incentivized to bring my own band-aids from home. Two of the very things that the last things you want workers to do, right? And everyone in my maintenance department is running around like open cuts, open wounds like that. And frankly, it's considered a sign of machismo, right? Whatever. Even when I started, now I'm 8 months in, so I kind of know better. But me and another apprentice, when we started, like that guy, fuck man, that guy would have just blood everywhere, like just, and he kept cutting himself. He didn't care about the stitches, ripping out his own stitches, like fuck, just insane, man. There's that kind of attitude, right? Even me, like I felt good when I remember when I first started as an apprentice. I don't do it anymore, but back then I used to get cuts a lot, and it would be a sign of pride. Like I would feel proud, like, hey, look, I'm working with all this rusty shit and whatever. I'm just, and I know you guys are probably cringing, like, yeah, fuck, you could get some serious infections and the rust and getting into your bloodstream and shit. But I'm just telling you how it is, man. Like that was kind of the attitude and atmosphere that I found at work, right? And then these days I wear gloves because I saw way too many finger injuries at work. Even people losing fingers at work. Like how many injuries I've seen since I started there. Shit, man. But I wear gloves now, but even in school they told us, like, don't wear gloves because when you're around rotating equipment, you're doing any kind of machining, you don't want to be wearing gloves because the gloves can get sucked into the, let's say, the bench grinder or something, or an angle grinder. Angle grinder, you wear gloves, of course, yeah. I just wear gloves for everything these days. But I know, like, there's one journeyman's millwright at work. He never wears gloves. He actually lost his finger, and kind of, I can see that it wounded his pride a little bit. He's not the same man he was before. But man, when I started, that guy was like just fucking giant, like 6'4", doesn't talk to anybody, just very good at what he does, like strong as fuck. Like I remember one time, he had to take a bearing off a shaft. So he's sitting there in one hand with like he's using a bearing puller on the bearing. He's got a gun in this hand. He's got the torch to heat it in the other hand, and just like barehanded. Like, what the fuck is this kind of shit I'm seeing? Anyways, this is all beside the point. I want to talk about the perverse incentives, that things could look good on paper, but then people are incentivized to do other stuff, like not get first aid in the first place because of how laborious the process is, how time-taking the process is, or they're incentivized to bring their own first aid equipment from home, like band-aids and stuff, which frankly now, like, I'm incentivized to do that. And it's going to be interesting because as a level 2 first aid attendant, I'm actually the most certified in the workplace now. Even the production workers, they're level 1s. Like, there's only maybe a couple of level 2s. I'm going to be one of them, and then to be doing first aid in a place where people are getting injuries and often very serious injuries all the time is going to be very interesting. And I have to say, like, I'm quite queasy with blood and all that shit, but you know, I really feel like every activity has the chance to teach you new virtues if you let it. Whether it's this first aid thing I did, whether it's driving, the kind of autonomy that teaches you, self-reliance it teaches you, whether it's the trade I do, even office work, like whatever, pick any activity, it has the chance to teach you virtues if you let it. So even with this, I was talking to the guy next to me. He was a safety officer for like a lifetime, and he had done the level 3 first aid program many times and treated a lot of injuries. And he told me, like, even when he started out, was quite queasy about the stuff, but then he just went on the internet and like just looked up every image and video he could find on the shit until he kind of inured himself, got used to it. And that's kind of what I'm gonna do. Like, you gotta grow in life, right? Like, injuries are just a part of life. Injuries, sickness, illness, whatever, maladies of different kinds. And I think as a man, I'm not saying it's in a prescriptive way. I'm not saying other men should be doing this, but for me, I'm just talking to myself right now. As a man, I should be the one that people turn to in moments of crisis. I should be able to handle it. So that's just something I'm working on, right? So as hard as this program was that's over this last week, I relish and I'm grateful for the chance to learn new virtues, right? And so I'll probably make another video about this, as maybe I treat my first emergency, handle my first aid emergency at work or something. But yeah, that's that.